We want to make sure we don't take too much time. I know all the staff just wants to rush back to your offices and get to work. So we'll give you that opportunity. I'm Gary Schrenk, President of the Executive Director of the Science of Mind Foundation. And I'd like to introduce first our board, who is all with us today. And as I call your name, board folks, if you would just stand up, and if you would hold your applause till the end, that'd be cool. First of all, Dr. Kristina Collins is our president. Vice President, Dr. Walter Drew, right here. Reverend Emile Gauvreau is our secretary. And treasurer is Bert Hughes. There's Bert. Then the board members that are here with us, Reverend Bob Grabowski, and Bob's wife Barbara is here with us. Arrow Johnson is a guy who lives right next door to us, so that's pretty amazing. Sharon Hudson, Reverend Sharon Hudson, our field leader. And CSL Executive Director Steve Burton is here, as is CSL Executive Director Sonia Byrne. Figure that one out. The treasurer of CSL, also on our board by virtue of her office, is Reverend Alice Reed. There's Alice over there. And in addition to me on the foundation staff, Peggy Keene's our project manager. Peggy's over by the drinks. And Luann Sarago-Balters right here doing the video today. We're videotaping the program so you can all watch it later on YouTube or something. So thank you, board members. Now, there's a couple of things that are gifts today. I wasn't even aware we were going to have all these gifts. Well, one I was aware of. This little star, which matches the stars which will eventually be on the wall, are for each of you. They have a saying that comes from the wall in that center panel. God and I are one. So if you would like to fix this somewhere or put it on your altar at home, whatever, that's why we did it. So you'd have a remembrance of today. And this is the same size as the medium size of stars that will go on the wall. There's a smaller one and a larger one, and it's based on the amount that a person gives. And there's a card at your place that explains the way the recognition will work. Now, at some point in time, we hope to have roughly 300 stars and or orbs on the wall. So it'll look different in 5 years or 10 years. And if it's full, roughly the average size of a planned gift is about $70,000 to $80,000. So if we had 300 of these on here, what's 300 times 70? 21 million. Yeah, so it will represent at some point in the future $21 million of gifts that will have been given to the Science of Mind Foundation to benefit CSL and Science of Mind. The other thing that you have, which is a nice gift from the Science of Mind magazine, is the magazine which, if you open up the front cover, has the beautiful trifold ad, which was the time that we really introduced the wall to our Science of Mind magazine world. So that's why you have that particular issue. So the purpose of the wall is recognition, but because of the really awesome beauty of it, it has really transformed what we now call the celestial level of the home office. So you are now in the celestial level as opposed to the basement. And I think that's probably a good improvement for all of us who work in the celestial level. And I'd like to introduce a couple of guests that are with us today, and perhaps they'll come up and say something. The artist who, well, before I just jump into that, as I jump into that, I want to show you what this would have looked like if I did it. So here here's my sketch of the original wall. And then here was what our artist in Georgia did with this. And this is what Amy Thornton did with this. Amy, would you come up? So it's a long ways from my first sketch.
Yeah, I should have brought my sketches, maybe.
Yeah, those are
Well,
good.
thank you, Gary and Peggy. It was really a joy to work with you both. And as I've been taking classes and with Science Mind for over 25 years down at Mile High Church, and so it's an honor every time I work on a project related, because I really love the philosophy and I live the philosophy, and I notice how it works with the project, by surrendering to the divine order and the guidance. It always turns out much better than what I could have ever planned. And so I wanted to share a few fun facts about it, kind of an insider on the production side. First of all, the wall was originally beige, and I had this idea of doing this. It's called an ombre, where you take one color and blend it into the other. And I didn't realize that dark colors are more challenging. The YouTube videos did not mention that. So there's actually 5 coats of paint on this wall. I think it took me 2 weeks just to do the background. But because I'm an artist and a painter, a contemporary painter, I tried rolling it at first and ended up just doing my freeform brush strokes so that it would have more of a flow and an energy. So I'm particularly indebted to the background wall, even though nobody probably will ever think about that. The other thing was, when it came time to reposition the painting, because the painting used to be over there, when we got it off the wall, Michael, who I'll introduce, the back wire, I think, was the original wire from like the 50s, because it was it was a super duper wire, but it was one wire that was all rusted. So it has nice new shiny wire on it. And then the last thing, I think one of the most challenging was these are all NASA images, and you can read about them on the credit panel, which is cleverly covering the thermostats. But don't worry, Steve, it lifts up and you can change the thermostats. But the challenging part as an artist was, they were all different colors. And to make it look like one universe was really the artistry that I'm the most proud of, because, it was a lot of Photoshop layering and a lot of finesse to get them to look like, the individual pieces to look like one big piece. So those are kind of my fun facts. And so I'll introduce Michael O'Rourke. And Michael is a facilitator and a writer, but he's also a master electrician. I think since you were 12 years old, you've been
13.
13. And so I thought Michael could share a little bit about the lighting, because it really is the lighting as well, and part of this whole divine order about how it all came together. So.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Amy has a tendency to give me way too much credit, because she is definitely the creative one. So all I really did was help hang that. But the lighting, there's a couple things about the lighting. There's a lot of choices about it, and we talked about track lighting, things like that. But the track lighting, it's like you didn't want to distract from the pictures themselves. And so we had to fit those up in the wall. And actually, there's a lot of stuff up in the ceiling. And the way those lights ended up laying out was like beat all odds. The fact that the light fixtures were able to fit where they did and be lined up perfectly with the panels. And the biggest thing I'll say is it's all about the light bulbs. The light bulbs that are used there are expensive, and they're art gallery light bulbs, and that's part of what helps bring out all of the light. And when you see it with the darkness and out the spotlight on it, it really brings out the light. But it's honestly the creativity in the light bulbs. I just am kind of utility other than that. So thanks.
So anyway,
Well, it's really amazing, and the fact, as Michael pointed out, that each of those light bulbs fit is some kind of a miracle, because there, as you said, there's lots of wires and boxes and things that are all up and down this space, and yet none of them got in the way of the lights. It's amazing. So at this point, I'd like to ask Steve Burton to come on up. Steve was kind of the, he says he's the guy that started the foundation, the new one, started about 10 years ago. And that, I think that's true because his signature is in all the formative documents. So, Steve, you get credit for it. So if you'd say a little bit about the foundation.
Sure. Thanks, Gary. So I look out, and over the last 10 to 12 years, we have seen a lot of change. Walter and I have been in the leadership roles, and when we look back at all the things that have happened, and Alice working with me on finance, we have achieved a lot over the last decade. But I think one of the most wonderful things we achieved is the creation of this foundation, because it is the future of the teaching of science of mind. It is the foundational bedrock of our finances. And it's not only the bedrock of the finances for our denomination, our organization, reaching out around the globe to take this teaching everywhere. It is for our communities. And in the endowments that we are now holding for our communities, we have right now over 12 communities that have joined in putting their endowments within the Science Mind Foundation. That will continue to grow. It has always been my belief that every community, no matter how big or how small, can have its own endowment. And if they plant the seeds, within a decade, they will have a $1 million endowment. Now, if you do the math, and we have over 400 communities, that's a lot of money that we will be managing for the growth of our communities. Then you take these wonderful individuals that leave us in their estate planning. And we have seen through the magazine over the decades people who never attend one of our centers, but they know that this magazine is their spiritual guide. It is their spiritual practice. And because of that, they leave Centers for Spiritual Living or the Science Mind Foundation, or they might name the magazine or however they name it, but they leave their wealth to us, a portion of their wealth, so that we can manage that wealth and build upon it. And it will live in perpetuity as a gift that they have given to the world to take the teaching forward. And a great example of that is one that just occurred. A gentleman by the name of Bill Bryant made his transition last November. And Bill is a very close friend of one of our ministers. He has attended some of our communities, and he has been a subscriber of the magazine for a long time. We received a check yesterday for a total of $249,000. And we will receive another at the closing in July, probably another 20 to 40. And this is a great example of someone who really sees the value of taking the teaching into the world, of supporting what all of you do on a daily basis to make it all happen. So it is so vitally important that we continue to support the magazine, which continues to support the foundation with ads that allows the people to understand that they have a way to share this teaching around the globe. So, Gary, I have for you and a check from Centers for Spiritual Living to the Science of Mind Foundation for $149,000 to go into the endowment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the staff, as you know, we had a little bit of a financial dip come because of the stock market in the last quarter. And we are seeing those numbers come back up. It's wonderful. We're seeing all of that come back up. Mark is happy. You know, if Mark's happy, things are good. Well, he smiled a little bit. But we had to take $100,000 out of our building fund to cover some of our bills over January and February. We are able, with that gift now, to put back $99,600. So it is a great way to see a bequest come in and truly support the day-to-day work that we do here and the longevity of our teaching and taking it around the globe. So thank you all for all you do.
Thank you, Steve. Well, there's an amazing amount of forethought that goes into the idea that you take some of every bequest that comes in and you put it in your foundation endowment forever. You know, I know a lot of places that would just, whatever the case would be, they would take that and spend it. And the problem with doing that is you have no future. So it's a great decision made by our CSL Leadership Council and under the leadership of Steve and now Sonia that really allow the foundation. We do get some of those directly to the foundation as well, but I love the idea that we have the rule that those bequests will be divided between current spending and our future. So at this point, I would like to ask Peggy to come up here or somehow push the button. We're going to let the donor wall come to life. I know that it's not the easiest to hear. This is a 60 or 80-year-old recording, but this is the recording that Ernest made at the Whittier speech in 1959, I think it is. And you'll get to hear it now. And the reason we picked this particular section is because, as you can see from the last panel, and you'll hear in Ernest's own words, this was the moment when, during a speech dedicating that particular church, that he crossed over to the next dimension. And he realized and he saw that there is an afterlife, that there are people there, that we are there. And because this is a legacy wall, that's really the message of the wall. I mean, when you put your star on this wall, you're immortal not only here, but in the next world as well. So, Peggy, if you can start Ernest Holmes.
This is William Hart speaking. The next voice you hear will be that of Dr. Ernest Shirtliff Holmes.
There are many wonderful religions in the world. We are not better than the others. We are not more spiritual. We are not more evolved. We are not more anything other than this one thing. We have co-joined our consciousness with the eternal verity of the universe, that everlasting and eternal Father of all life, and the Mother of all creation, forever begetting the only begotten, is begetting him in us right now. And that the word of our mouth is a word of truth in such degree as it emulates and embodies the truth which sanctifies the word to its unique service of healing, not only the sick, but the poor in heart. We are dedicated to the concept that the pure in heart shall see God. Here, that the meek will inherit the earth now, that one with truth is a majority, that every one of us in the secret place of the Most High, the citadel of his own consciousness, has the secret of the eternal, the everlasting, the almighty, and the ineffable. God and I are one. And I see you doing this. And I see you uniting in one great hymn of praise, one great union of effort, one crescendo song, and one enveloping light of consciousness. I see it. Oh God, the veil is in between. We do mingle with the hosts of heaven. I see it, and I shall speak no more.
At this point, we're going to place the first orb and the first star on the wall. And I'd like to invite Dr. Kristina Collins to come up and maybe explain to us why your center decided to make an endowment in the Science of Mind Foundation.
Good afternoon. Please talk back to me. I need to know you're out there. It's harder to see you. I like to connect with my audience. I want you to know that first off, I'm placing an orb for my particular center, the Sanctuary for Spiritual Living in Covina. And we're not a huge center. We are about 75 people now. We've been larger, we've been smaller. It's sort of the life of being a center, right? But I'm not the first center. John Waterhouse and his center is the first one that actually funded one. I'm not the last center. That center just came in. The most recent has just come in this week. It sounds like it's been a prosperous week. And there will be more and more. Why would a center do this? For the same reason that Centers for Spiritual Living is doing this. And that is so that we can be a beneficial presence in this world forever. So that people who have had the experience of their lives being transformed, like I have, like each of you have, through the practice of the science of mind, can give that gift to other people in the future. And that's the only reason that you would dedicate yourself to a future dream. I love what has happened down here, downstairs, in this beautiful area, because it embodies, as you come down the stairs, you have this beautiful look into the future right across from the entrance into the archives, our history. And these two things are what we draw on, what make a difference in who we are. And so we're here today. My center is here today. They are so proud. They were cheering Sunday when I told them I got to represent us like this. And it's because we love the science of mind. I don't know anything else to say about it than that. We love the science of mind, and we want everyone to have it because it transforms first the individual, and over time the community, and over more time the state, over more time the country, over more time the world. We see that happening within Centers for Spiritual Living, and we see it happening in our individual centers now. So I want to thank you for allowing me to do this. I've been given instruction about how to place that orb. Am I doing that right in this moment? Yes. See, one of the things that we rely on Peggy for is direction, because otherwise you have to deal with me, and that's a little bit less orderly. These are beautiful orbs that each center is going to be having as a representation of who they are. It has the name of our center, Sanctuary for Spiritual Living, and the location, Covina, California. And in that, we are identified. A little story about how we did this, a small center. We did this because people decided that it was a valuable idea to be able to sustain our future by having income from an endowment. People recognized it and said that it sounded an awful lot like a retirement account. They could identify with that. And so that idea that there's going to be a future good that actually is going to start happening right away is a powerful motive for this good. For all my center that are going to be watching this video, I am so proud of you. How amazing to see a few people decide to be so big in heart and so luscious in giving. It's remarkable. I'm going all the way to the end.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have to follow it.
Please hold.
Don't do it yet? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. I'm drawn to this panel because I do believe that we are surrounded by the host of heaven, and many of our friends are already in that side, watching this and delighted.
Thank you, Chris. Next, I'd like to invite Reverends Bob and Barbara Grabowski, who have made a tremendous gift to the foundation in their estate plan. And maybe they can tell us what led them to decide to do that. So, Barbara? Bob?
You get to go first. Because it's so difficult for us to give up control, we heard about a thing called charitable remainder trust, where you can still affect what that amount of funding is doing. And I would like everybody to know what a charitable remainder trust is. If you have any kind of investment, you can have that in a trust. You can change the way it goes. It can grow. We wanted something that wouldn't be fixed at a specific amount, but that would grow. And so a particular asset we have designated to be divided between the Science of Mind Foundation and two of the centers that we support. And that's kind of how this came about.
My turn. You know, I've said for many years, we discovered Science of Mind in our early 50s. And we're a little beyond that now, some 30 plus years. Anyway, I've said for a number of years that we were in a position in our church where, pardon me, we knew that the church would not have continued if it hadn't been for what we did, as Bob and I did at that particular time. That's not a statement of ego, it's just a truth. And I've said if we had never done anything good in our whole lives, but that one thing, that would have made our lives worthwhile. So it's meant so much to us. We're that classic case of finding home the first time we went to the church. And it's meant everything to us for the last many years now. And to think that, as Bob said, we can control beyond the grave, that we can make sure that we are contributing forever, in a certain sense, to the growth of Science of Mind, the thing that has made our life so special for these last 35 years or so. So,
one thing I would throw in, because we were founding members of this little church in Idaho, and the reason why we went to this was there was an ad in the local paper that said that the guest speaker for that weekend was going to be a Native American shaman. And that's what drew us to Science of Mind, because of the word that has taken over my mind as the essence of Science of Mind, which is inclusivity. Because it includes a Native American and shaman. It includes all of the sources that Ernest Holmes used to create the Science of Mind textbook. And it was us taking a class and another class and another class, and all of a sudden there weren't any more except practitioners, so we took practitioners, and then through a very strange situation, we became ministers.
I didn't think it was strange. Speak for himself.
Barbara said she didn't want to be a minister's wife, so she became a minister.
Go, Peggy.
I'll let her do it.
Okay.
What a thrill.
Thank you, guys.
What a thrill. Thank you. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara.
Well, that brings us about to the end of our program today. I would like now to call on Reverend Emile Gauvreau, who will deliver the dedicatory prayer and the prayer which will close our meeting. Emile?
Thank you, Gary. I'd like to make a circle somehow, so if you would all humor me and create a circle so we represent the infinite representation of Spirit as us, in us, through us. So it is with great gratitude that I take this moment to speak this word that speaks into the infinite nature of Spirit that is everywhere present and right here in the hands and hearts joined together physically in this space, the hands and hearts that are joined with us as this video is watched by many, 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 many myriads of people around the world to see what is the dynamic of Spirit as the Science of Mind foundation. I know that as we are gathered up in it, we are gathered up into that infinite oneness that is spoken of in the words of Ernest Holmes on the wall that is behind me in this moment. I know that it is the infinite nature of Spirit that expresses in through and as the heart of each one of us here. As we hold this philosophy that has brought us here in our hearts with great love, with great gratitude, knowing that it has changed each life represented by the hands and hearts here, each life that is
present here, and we celebrate that. We celebrate that with this wall, with the perpetual nature of the giving that these endowments represent, and the many more endowments that will be represented on this wall with the orbs and the stars of all the various sizes, knowing that as we go forward into the future, we are cementing that foundation for science of mind in the world beyond any of our lives here and the lives that may come after us, knowing that we are simply creating that permanent base that supports us, supports the philosophy, supports its growth, supports all of those who come to it and discover it in the days to come, and years to come, and centuries to come. So with great gratitude, I release this word. I know that as we dedicate this wall and dedicate this activity of the Science Mind Foundation, that it is all good, it is all God, it is already done in that one mind, and we celebrate it, we confirm it, and we simply say together, and so it is. Mm-hmm.